Íslenskur matur, Icelandic food. This video doesn't really contain any grammar or kind of other linguistic things than vocabulary. It's just kind of an introduction to Icelandic culture and Icelandic food, what Icelanders eat, what kind of things you can expect to see in restaurants in Iceland, and so forth. So let's dive in. The first thing we have here is kleina, which is a kind of Icelandic donut. This is made by cutting kind of a sweet dough into a diamond shape, and then you cut a slit down the middle, and you pull one end through the slit to kind of make this folded over knot shape, and then it's deep fried, and it's this really tasty donut. It's normally covered in this kind of cinnamony sugar sort of thing after it's been fried, and they're really quite tasty. I'd say if you go to Iceland and you get these, don't buy them in the supermarket. Buy them fresh from a bakery, because the ones from supermarket, particularly Bonus, the Icelandic supermarket with the big funny pig logo that some people might have seen if they've been to Iceland, those ones are terrible. But when you get the fresh ones from the bakery, they're really, really nice. So that's kleina. Then another baked good is flatkur. This is a kind of Icelandic flat bread, or literally flat cake, as the name suggests. But it's not sweet; it's actually savoury. So it's kind of like the size of a side plate, and it's made of like whole flour, 2 or 3 millimeters thick, and you actually cook it on a griddle pan or directly on the kind of ring of an electric hob sometimes, which means that you get these kind of dark charred bits like you can see in the picture, which gives it this kind of smoky taste. And it's really, really nice. It's used to make kind of Icelandic snacks and sandwiches, kind of like little wraps. It's a traditional food, normally eaten with loads of butter on it, cheese, and sometimes hangikjöt, which is the thing that we'll see on the next slide. So hangikjöt is a kind of smoked lamb meat. It's kind of cured like a ham, and you buy it in slices. You can eat it cold with flatkur, or you can have it kind of warm in a meal like it is here. So here it's served with laufabrauð, rauðkál, grænar beinir, soðnar kartöflur, og hvítsósa. So this is kind of like an Icelandic interpretation of Danish Christmas dinner. In Denmark, you normally have this pork centerpiece at Christmas. This is kind of like with the trimmings of that, but with Icelandic meat, because the normal meat that you have in Iceland, if it just says curt, is normally lamb. So you can see there that you have that kind of like boiled red cabbage, which is kind of the Danish thing. The grænar bönir, which are the peas, horrible tinned peas that don't taste of anything. Then you have the laufabrauð, which is that very thin, crispy bread on the side. That's normally made at Christmas in Iceland, and sometimes they get very intricate patterns on them as well. Then you have the soðnar kartöflur, boiled potatoes, and hvítsósa, which is this kind of like bechamel sauce. It's sometimes also called jafningur. It's quite nice. The peas I would skip, but the lamb itself is pretty good. Then you have plokkfiskur, which is a kind of Icelandic fish gratan. So it's normally some kind of white fish like þorskur, cod, or issa, haddock, which is gently cooked in milk, and then you kind of flake it up and you mix it with mashed potatoes, and that gives you this kind of gratan, which you put under the grill. It's normally seasoned with some kind of like curry powder, and sometimes has cheese in it as well. But after you put it under the grill, it gets this lovely crispy golden top on it, and it's really, really, really tasty. It's served normally with rúgbrauð, this sweet Icelandic rye bread that you can see there on the side. The Icelandic rúgbrauð is based on Danish rúgbrauð, Danish rye bread, And the Danish one normally has some kind of seeds in it. It's not as sweet as the Icelandic one, a bit healthier. The Icelandic one's more like a cake, to be honest. Then we have another kind of fiskur. We have harðfiskur, hard fish, literally. This is normally þorskur or isa as well, any kind of white fish, and it's hung up to dry outside in the air. So if you're driving around Iceland, you can sometimes see these wooden A-shaped frames in the middle of a lava field or on top of a mountain or something, and they have all of these decapitated fish hanging from them. That is the harðfiskur being dried. So because it's so dry in Iceland, there's not much humidity, and there's always a reliable wind, and it's quite cold. It's actually the perfect conditions for making dried fish. So it has this kind of jerky texture, although it's maybe a bit drier than that, sometimes a bit flaky. And you normally eat it with lots of smjör, Icelandic butter, which is very, very creamy. And that masks sometimes some of the more fishy flavours that you get from the harðfiskur. It can sometimes seem at first when you bite into it like it's not going to be really fishy, and then it really hits you with this kind of dry cod aftertaste. But if you have it with smjör and lots of it, that sometimes takes away from that, and it can actually be really quite a nice snack. Then you have the pilsa, or as one half of Icelanders says pilsa. Icelanders are divided about whether to say pilsa or pulsa. A lot of people say pulsa, some say pilsa, some say it pulsa, but write pilsa. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, the Icelandic hot dog is kind of famous in Iceland. It's a favourite treat of Icelanders of all ages. You can get hot dogs absolutely everywhere. Hot dog stands, petrol stations, any convenience store in Reykjavik or anywhere around the country, you can always get a hot dog. So what's in an Icelandic hot dog? What makes it special? First of all, you have the brauð, the bun, literally just bread. Then you have tomatsósa, and there are no prizes or extra marks for guessing what tomatsósa means. Then you also have the sinnep, which is this kind of sweet brown mustard. So far 2 sauces. Then you have steiktur laukur, crispy onions. These are kind of the dry crispy ones. Then you have hrár laukur, and then which is raw onion. It's actually normally underneath the sausage. You can't actually see it here. Then you have the pilsa, or sausage itself. So pilsa means sausage, but also the whole thing, the whole hot dog. The Icelandic pilsa is a little bit unusual in that it has both svínakjöt, pork, and lambakjöt, lamb. So you do get this kind of lamby aftertaste. Then you have your third and final sauce, which is the remoulade. This is based on the Danish remoulade, which is a kind of mayonnaise sauce, I think, with gherkins and things like that. But the Icelandic one's very sort of artificial and weird tasting. But when you combine it with the tomatsósa and the sinnep and the laukur, it is really quite nice, especially after a night of drinking where you might end up having 2 or 3 of these. Then you have nammi, Íslenskt nammi, Icelandic sweets. The word nammi comes from nam, which means yum yum. The most common kind of nammi in Iceland is lakrís, licorice. It can be anything from the kind of strong, spicy licorice to the darker, sort of sweeter black licorice, like you have in licorice all sorts here. The stronger, spicier one tends to have this other chemical in it called salmiak, which makes it very, very spicy and kind of stings the back of your throat. It's really popular in Iceland, and you find it snuck into all kinds of different things. Like you get like licorice lattes, licorice sort of dishes in restaurants. I once had this kind of chicken skewer thing in a tapas restaurant with a licorice glaze. It's really, really nice. But a lot of the licorice is too strong for me, to be honest with you. So depends where you're from. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. Lakrís. Another really kind of popular nummy is hlaup. Hlaup is just any kind of gummy, chewy sweet. A really popular kind is called trillar, and that comes in sweet flavours, sour flavours, all sorts. And then you have Íslenskt súkkulaði. Íslenskt súkkulaði. Like chocolate in the other Nordic countries, the Icelandic súkkulaði is very, very creamy and rich and maybe a bit sweet compared to what we're used to. It makes really good hot chocolate though, so you can see in the picture here the suðusúkkulaði, literally boiling chocolate. That's what you use to make heitt súkkulaði or kakó. Icelandic hot chocolate is hands down the best I've ever had. So if you go into any cafe and ask for heitt súkkulaði með rjóma with cream, you will not be disappointed. Then finally we have the slátur, which is the kind of disgusting food that Iceland is famous for internationally. The slátur is also called matur because it's eaten on the Thorrablót festival, which is at the end of January. And it's a mixture of all kinds of different things. You get a kind of hlaðborð or buffet of different things. And these are some of the most common. So the first one is hrútspungar. The word hrútur means ram, a male sheep, and pungur means a sack. And I will leave the rest to your imagination. I think you can probably work out what this is. Then we have pilsa, which literally means liver sausage. It's not really like liver sausage that we would have here in a sandwich or something. It's kind of coarser, not particularly nice. Then you have the blóðmör, which is like black pudding. So this is a blood-based pudding. It's quite different from Scottish black pudding in that you don't have the same kind of spices and things that make it really, really nice. The Icelandic one is kind of bloodier and the texture is not always very pleasant. Then you have svið, which maybe looks like one of the least appetizing things on the plate, but is probably the tastiest. So svið is it's a sheep's head cut in half down the middle, and then it's kind of roasted like a rotisserie chicken. And actually in Iceland, if you go into supermarkets and petrol stations where you have like a rotisserie chicken sort of cabinet, you'll have the chickens on the top and then you have the svið, sheep's head, underneath. It's kind of like an Icelandic fast food. If you're a meat eater, the cheek meat is actually really nice. It's just kind of like tender lamb meat. If you're vegan or vegetarian, you probably aren't watching it by this point anyway. So that bit's quite nice. The bit that the Icelanders like to eat, the delicacy is the eyeball, because they bite into that and it kind of pops, and then you get the sort of juices in the middle. You couldn't really get me to eat that bit in a million years. So although they really love it and they say that it's amazing, I am quite happy to just not try that part. The cheek meat is fine though. Then finally you have hákarl, which is probably one of the most famous Icelandic slátur foods. This is the fermented shark meat. And it comes in tiny little cubes because you really couldn't eat more of it in one bite than that. It's got a very, very sour, bitter, sort of caustic flavour. It's very, very pungent, gets up your nose. It smells absolutely rancid. Icelanders will tell you that they eat this every day, and it's just kind of a trick really for tourists, to be honest. Some Icelanders do like it, but most of them have never eaten it or only have eaten it once. I've tried it just to say that I did. To be honest with you, I'm never going to have it again in my life. But Icelanders, when they have this, they normally have a little chaser of brennivin, which is like a shot of Icelandic schnapps flavoured with Icelandic herbs. And it's a really good palate cleanser to get rid of the frankly disgusting taste of hákarl.